really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker. What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Disappointed. Extremely disappointed. I hear the criticism, and it's warranted. It is. And a lot of that falls, on my shoulders. 4 years we've not gone to the playoffs. We've not won a division since I've been here. Not won a playoff game since 2018. I've got to own all that. I do. Coming off a year last year when we were 9-8, and I'm thinking, okay, we're trending up. And instead of really creating competition throughout and throwing new blood into the locker room, new players into the locker room, I said, you know what, we're going to run it back. That was a mistake. It was. I was wrong. Look, I'm a fan too now. I don't blame them for being pissed and questioning. They should. They should question. It means they care, one, but that also means that they're not happy with our performance. Look, I like Anthony, and Anthony's done some really good things, but there's been some potholes too. The number one thing we have to figure out and what Anthony's got to work through is staying healthy. He's got to be able to stay healthy. We can't beat our head against the wall. We've got to have competition at the position just for the fact that competition makes everybody better, and then two, he's not proven he can play 17 games.
That's Chris Ballard from earlier today. The postponed earlier this week press conference moved until 10 a.m. this morning. We have full reaction coming at you throughout the course of the day on what is going to be an incredibly busy show. So be ready. I know that there's snow on the inbound, if not already here, certainly. And we'll keep you updated regarding that. Matt Bear, the traffic guru, is across the hall. So if I need to grab any information, any content from Matt, we will certainly do so. Now, I will want to say this. A lot of you get immediately diffused. A lot of you go, oh, well, he did own it. And I'm not one to make it personal, and I'm not going to take it above and beyond. I will keep it in terms of their football operation. But everything that he said in owning it is accurate. And then everything that he said basically is a storyline from a year ago or 2 years ago. Yeah, talking about running this team back this past year, you could have run that press conference back. It's basically the same. The only thing that stood out to me is not recognizing last year that with your team, you need competition. That is the recognition factor. He brought this up earlier today. I don't know if we have this anywhere, but he brought this up earlier today, and I have said this for the past 2 weeks. When they have looked in the mirror, they don't see reality. And he mentioned you got to be able to look in the mirror, see your faults, and address your faults. They did not. They have not. And it's not just the player personnel level here. It's the actions within the locker room. It's the talent. It's the organization being in lockstep, the organization being on the same page. 3 days ago, Shane Steichen said they were close. Earlier today, Chris Ballard said they're not close. So what, are you going to meet in the middle? And again, I would agree with Chris Ballard that it's not close, but you have 4 days to digest what is going on with the fan base, with the public, with what everybody is talking about, and then respond accordingly. So actually, I wouldn't say being sick is beneficial, but in this case, I mean, you knew what was coming. And it's not like it's the first time this guy's been in this situation before. The overall view of this is this hasn't worked. this isn't working. And if I were you, I wouldn't hold my breath for it all of a sudden in year number 9 to turn around and look. And that's what I've said all along. That's addressing the issue. So what do you do to make things different? What's your approach now? You're going to identify talent better? You're going to get into free agency and bringing in, I mean, what if you just get into free agency, but what if you don't bring in the right talent? Simply put, your philosophies are the things that haven't worked. That's the root. The philosophies of building a winning team, that's what hasn't worked. And that's why I'm a non-believer. And that's why I've sat here and said there's nothing personal in this whatsoever. But the philosophies, the foundational pieces, these are the things that haven't worked. There was a point in time, you guys remember this? There was a point in time when we want to make sure you have the best depth in the NFL. And then you have to come out today and say that a year ago you made a mistake because you didn't create player competition or position competition. If you don't have that competition, then you don't have depth. Again, that's a core belief of Chris Ballard. That's why I don't buy it going into year 9. Everybody always says, well, you're just, it's easy to be on. No, it was, I think, much more difficult years ago. It's certainly easy right now. But it's never been more recognizable, certainly, than it is right now. Mike Chappell and I had a conversation yesterday, and hopefully you caught that. The podcast is at 1075thefan.com, where I had asked him a question regarding what could Chris Ballard say to ease anybody's mind. Outside of the uber butt-sniffing superfan that's out there, that everything is always good and everything's always going to be great. But outside of the butt sniffer, whose mind is going to be put at ease? And the answer to that, as Mike is a testimonial to from yesterday, is absolutely nobody. None of this matters. This is just all words. It was an hour's worth of stuff that, again, speaking of run it back, he was running back press conferences and meeting with the media, conversations of old. Well, you got to bring the tough questions. You got to do this. You got to do that. Everybody, I thought, asked the questions that were necessary to ask. The problem is that over the years, over his time here, over his tenure, he has not had satisfactory answers in terms of what has translated on to the field positively. They're not close this year, and you may feel that they were close last year. They're not close last year. And I think what even brings them further, to me, is the fact that you don't have any sort of gauge going into year 3 on your quarterback. The references of, that fourth quarter in New England and other people let him down and penalties and all this, it's still a guy you had to bench midseason. And I don't care what you say. I mean, if you're a football guy in private, there is no way that you incredibly buy this. The one thing that he has done, and I've often said this, over the years, you can't have the fan base. I'm going to give you guys credit. Fan base has been on top of a lot of this as well for a number of years, and you can't have the fan base be more accurate than you. As much as the old saying goes, you can't let the fans decide, because if you do, you're going to be sitting with them. You can't have the fan base be more savvy and smarter about putting together or addressing a situation than you. And this whole running it back, re-signing your own, creating no angst in the locker room where you're worried about your position, worried about getting benched, worried about your spot on the team. This is all stuff that fans have talked about. Tight end position, fans have talked about. Wide receivers in the past, fans have talked about. Edge rushers, fans have talked about. Cornerbacks, defensive backs, fans have talked about. It's the same old with that. Again, today you found a guy that's trying to sell you his vision and his belief that he is hard-headed, as he mentioned a number of times, in buying into his belief, and his foundational core of what is going to make a championship team. And still on this day, after that press conference, it makes no difference. You are not any closer to it with this team than you have been. There is no evidence that these core beliefs work. That's the issue. This is the NFL where 1 year, like somebody asked me a question yesterday, what happens if they go 17-0? I mean, you know what the hell happens if they go 17-0. Now, what happens if I fall asleep tonight and wake up and tomorrow morning I'm Brad Pitt? I mean, hell, I'm going to Hollywood and get in acting. In the magazine cover. They still have magazine covers. Yeah, what happens if? But that's not logically going to take place. You got guys right now that don't believe in it. You got guys right now that haven't performed to the level that you expect. And a lot of these guys hold heavy contracts. A lot of these guys certainly are going to be back next year. And then to add the cherry on top, you have no idea what you're going to get from your quarterback again. And frankly, you haven't had any idea what you're going to get from your quarterback since Phillip Rivers. That is so problematic. So, to me, the message I thought was Chris Ballard just rehashing, restating what has been the issue. This is still more of a Jim Irsay issue than it is anything else, because this is a bed that the owner has chosen to continue to go ahead and lie in and believe in when, again, there's no evidence that this is going to take you to where you want to go. And there's hope. Hell, there's always hope. Again, it's the NFL. A year's turnaround can happen. Look at the Denver Broncos, for goodness sake. Now, you could be mired. You watch Cleveland. Cleveland mired in arguably the worst contract and the worst deal of all time with their, again, injured quarterback, Deshaun Watson. They'll probably dig out of this. You would guess if they weren't Cleveland. That, again, is the evidence of that organization, and this is the evidence of this organization right now. You continue to do this, you get the same results. Nothing personal whatsoever. I'm sure this dude has forgotten more about football than any of us have ever known. But again, what he has done to put things together, what he has done in his core beliefs, his foundational structure is what has not worked. And there's no argument to be had right there. And there's no way to salvage that even if you own it, which he did earlier today. Yeah, no question. More, honestly, in terms of questions, you have more of those than you logically do answers. And that is an incredibly bad spot for an organization to be caught up in. It's just a similar situation that it has been. The whole competition thing, like none of the owning it or it falls on me, none of that stuff surprised me. The competition, non-recognition is ridiculous. I'll tell you, all the way around, this organization has had so many issues. But there becomes a point in time to when it's not even so much about Chris Ballard and his beliefs and where you're going and, you know, getting a ninth year, or whether or not you believe in Shane Steichen or believe in Anthony Richardson. It's going to be whether or not you believe in who's actually making the overall decision, and that's Jim. Now, who is letting this continue? Now, he didn't want to, going back to Carson Wentz, didn't want that to continue. That was done after that Jacksonville game. And Chris brought that up a little bit earlier today when he suggested that particular year they were playing really good football. I mean, they were. That Christmas night, Arizona, remember, had guys out, COVID protocol, and all that was going on. That was a fantastic performance. And that was probably the best that I can believe this team has played and we felt about them in the past 4 years, or at least in recent memory, up until that point in time. And then a home game and the road in Jacksonville, it all fell through. And then at that point in time, Jim Irsay said, all right, well, I see what the flaw is here. I see the issue. I'm going to deal with the issue and get the issue out of here. But there has been an overriding issue with it all, and that has just been the direction of this team. How much do you honestly think it's going to change? How much can be changed? How many of you are saying right now, it just comes down to this, I'll believe it when I see it? You have to, at the most, even if you're, again, butt-sniffing Uber fan. That has to be your position. I'll believe it when I see it because you have no evidence to buy it, no matter what was said today. And as I double back to the conversation yesterday with Mike Chappell, that's exactly what we talked about. There was nothing that could be said, and that was understood. I just listened for other things, other nuggets, other reasons why things went haywire. You know, why they believe, why he still believes in his values. Well, he mentioned this a number of times. He is hard-headed. He is stubborn. I would have to think that he has no exit strategy from his core beliefs. It's not like you can change on a dime, I guess, if you're him. If you're going to believe in this, you're going to go down with the proverbial ship on it. Especially if the owner allows you 9 years to sink this thing to the bottom of the ocean. Which, let's just face it, that's exactly what has been done. All right, we got time to talk about that. Plenty of time at 239-1070. Email address is jmv@1075thefan.com. Yeah, I know everybody wants to go hardcore. I just, it's like running back the hardcore. I mean, hell, I could do the same show that I did, a year ago, the year before that. And I'm sure during those times, those moments, there was always somebody else to blame, somebody else in those situations. But, yeah, this has been the same old, same old. And this is no longer a Ballard. You know who Ballard, I mean, hell, it's been 8 years inside out. You know who Ballard is. This is a Jim Irsay issue now. The proverbial ball is in his court. And as long as he continues to let this go, this is what's going to occur. Whether it's his belief or whatever the case, this is now a rung higher on the ladder. Until further notice, until you decide to deal with it. It is the same preached hope that we've heard for a number of years. And if you're like me, I'm assuming you're probably pretty worn out on it, much like you're pretty worn out of hearing this same old damn diatribe. It does wear you out. I mean, hell, you probably heard it, going on 3 times already today? I mean, Jake probably had it for 3 hours. I don't know if the morning guys had it because the presser wasn't until 10. But, I mean, honestly, you can anticipate what was going to be said. It was nothing like it was anything majorly different. Oh, well, he owned it. And that's one thing, and it's really smart. You end up diffusing, any anger or any, heavy criticism, which you're going to ask all the right questions. But what more can be said? Again, this is now in control of ownership. We all know what you're dealing with here. And as long as ownership lets it go, this is the way that it's going to be. Maybe in year number 9, they'll be right about something. The last 4 years, they haven't been right about a damn thing. Just a lot of lip service. As I mentioned, 239-1070 if you guys want to go there. Pacers and Golden State later on tonight. Golden State's not going to look too much like Golden State. They have a ton of players out, including Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Second of a back-to-back there in Detroit last night. Trace Jackson Davis, the Center Grove product and former IU Hoosier, is listed as questionable. But it kind of looks like Golden State's going to have a G League-looking team out there coming up later on tonight, which this is something I'll just say it. This is something where the Pacers need to squash. Because Golden State just wants to drop in here, go out there, run it up and down the floor a couple of times and get the hell out of Dodge. Yeah, escort them out of town or like a 25-point loss. Don't let anybody hang around, mess around, jack around, anything like that. Not suggesting overlook whatsoever, but got your guys playing. If the Pacers have their dudes playing later on tonight, I guess I haven't heard any word on Miles. I know both Miles and Halliburton were questionable as of yesterday, but put the hammer down and move on. Get Cleveland in a home-and-home Sunday and Tuesday. So don't jack around. That's going to be my new philosophy. I think that's a philosophy of everything. Stop jacking around. That's to the Colts. Stop jacking around. Whether you're talking about the players, the organization, the ownership, stop jacking around. And I should be out today doing a Bud Light Blue Friday, giving away tickets to something. Instead, I'm in studio with James, complaining about the same old damn thing. So, yeah, I should be angry. You should be angry. Advertisers should be angry. What's that bang for your buck? You guys getting any return on investment, which is a heavy-duty investment? Regular season and done, past 4. The same old dialogue at the end for the most part of the past 4. Anybody getting anything out of this? You're not. It sucks. Boilermakers a big win over Rutgers last night on the road. Shout out to all the Notre Dame Fighting Irish fans. I'm going to say this. I can see why my mom digs Marcus Freeman. That is a guy that looks like if you want to play for somebody, he can motivate you to play right there. I like that. I like the fist pumping. I mean, he gets the full body enthusiasm going after a big play. I dig that. It was a hell of a game to watch last night, too. You got to look up. How many of you plan on going to Atlanta for the national championship game? And I know IU fans want me to talk about, the whole relative speaking of, IU was 10-point losers, and look how close they were compared to others, and they're going to end up, Ohio State loses, or check that, wins tonight. They're going to end up losing to Notre Dame and Ohio State. And that's fine. I don't need the IU season to be any more magnified in the positive. That's okay. That's for Mr. Peanut or Herb Street or somebody else on ESPN. You have to give them that line so they can either further recognize or not. I don't need to be sold on it. I know how good a season IU football had compared to basically all other stinking seasons in their existence. Notre Dame was fun to watch last night. You just kind of knew. When Greg McElroy said, I think it was Sean McDonough that said, would you go aggressive here or what would you do? Yeah, I got to be aggressive. And you go, uh-oh, here it comes. Right there in the middle of the field. That would be like something the Colts would do right there, right in the middle of the field. Let's see how we can blank this up if you're Penn State. I'm James Franklin. Hold on a minute. Give me the opportunity. I'm going to really blank this up right here. This is how we'll do it. And, man, they did it. Christian Gray with the pick. A Jeter kid with his dad. I'm going to say what his dad looked calm, cool, and collected. Can you imagine if your kid had the season like that and everything that was on the line they probably would have had to call the paramedics on me. This guy's all calm, cool, collected, shooting a video. Hey, whatever. I'd be phoning Rampart on my ass going, wait a minute. This numbnuts up here just passed out. We think he may be dead. All right, be careful out there. The snow is falling. If I get any updates, I'll give them to you. And I know a lot of you out there are the eyes and the ears of this program, so you can tell me what's going on throughout your trek home with another inbound 2 to 4 inches, as they explain. And hell, schools that went today, I think Center Grove got out a little bit early today. I don't think Eastern Green's been going all week. They'll probably never go again. They'll be going to school until July, and then they'll have to turn around and go back since you have to make those days up now. We got that for you, too. Busy weekend of college basketball. Ohio State, Texas coming up later on tonight. James, let's take a break. Bob Lovell going to join me on the other side. Bob Lovell, Mike Wells, James Boyd, Gorman late in the 5. We've got, what is it now? The Colts, what's the show called now?
Last Word.
The Last Word. Gorman and Matt Taylor star. There's another way, how disappointing it is and I love these guys too, and it's a great show, but The last word hits a little bit differently when you don't have any postseason love for it. That's at 6 o'clock later. No, wait a minute. What time is that, by the way?
It's at 6 o'clock because Pacers pregame starts at 6:30.
Oh, yeah, because it only goes 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's only 30 minutes.
So I don't have to go any extra tonight.
You don't,
at all.
no.
Holy crap. Oh, yeah, and volleyball tomorrow. The Indy Ignite. Am I going to see you guys at the Fishers Event Center? I hope so. A little professional volleyball to start out. Not just their first campaign in Indy and Fishers, but their first season underway tomorrow against Orlando. I'll be up there sometime in the afternoon. I think Jake's going to join me up there at some point, too. We will have a blast at the Fishers Event Center. Little Wayne tickets we shall give away. I've got a couple of passes to get in to the Indy Ignite inaugural game. And what should be an absolute show for you all day long up in Fishers. We've got 2 passes for you a little bit later on as well. 239-1070. Email address, JMV at 1075thefan.com. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Become a AAA member today. Now is the time, considering the weather circumstances. Got to have somebody that's got your back out there. AAA.com to become a member. Have that peace of mind and get it right now. AAA.com. Stream the app, HD Radio, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm very hard-headed, very stubborn. I am. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not, because I am. And having to really self-evaluate how we build the team and how we move forward is extremely important. You know, as I was sitting sick, feeling sorry for myself, but also self-reflecting on stuff we'll talk about and things we need to do differently. I came to some real truths. I mean, you got to be honest. You got to be able to look the person yourself in the mirror and tell yourself the truth on what's going on and how things are going. That's the only way you can really change and create real change.
Chris Ballard earlier today, yeah, you may look in the mirror, but you don't see what reality is. You may have time to self-reflect, but how much is going to change? And at this point, it doesn't matter how much self-reflection you have or how much you look in the mirror, because you are still going to believe to your core your foundation is what you have built and what is going to get to winning, even though the last 8 years, and especially the last 4, have not dictated that at all. And this is no longer a Ballard issue. This is an Irsay issue. Now, he's the one that's got to look in the mirror and go, okay, so I'm doing this again. Why? Because it's easy? Because he's still under contract? Because I don't want to blank with it? Or because I really do believe in it? And if I do believe in it, why in the hell do I believe in it? What is there to believe? So you're going to have some not-so-subtle changes, are we, on the horizon in free agency that's going to make everything better? What about all this competition and depth on the team? You know, not knowing competition, running it back with these guys? How about you just ran it back with the wrong guys? I'm all in on running it back with the Pacers. They ran it back with the right guys. The Colts have just run it back with the wrong guys and the wrong guy making the decisions on running it back. This is an owner problem now. This is no longer about we listen, it's 8 years of experience of where we are right here. And then basically the past 3+ years of hearing stuff like that. And we know where we are. Back to that in a second. Your calls in a second. I know you guys have heavy responses on it. And those responses will dictate the course of the show, I'm sure, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Now, Bob Lovell, going to get Bob on here because they got a busy night, got snow falling. I don't know how many high school games you're going to have to do tonight, Bob, because snow is going to end up. I mean, hell, I think they called off Center Grove's girls' game tomorrow in Jennings County already. What the hell?
Well, that's what's happening all over the state, John. There will not be very many games going on tonight. So, you know, it's that existential question I wrestle with. So, I host a statewide post-game call-in show, and suppose you're that guy. What do you do when there are no games? So
yeah, you're kind of screwed a little bit, aren't you? Do you just ever come on there and go, yeah, this segment's a little bit screwed?
Yeah, we're about to find out. So, there are a lot of postponements. There are a lot of, some county tournaments that are going on. Hendricks County tourney. I haven't seen whether that's still on or not. So it's one of those. It really, coming into it, was a really busy weekend of basketball on the boys and girls side, and the girls especially getting down to, they're getting into it. So the Perry show is on the 26th of the month, so they're getting down to the end of the season. So games are really important, but I'm not very optimistic that a lot of games are going to be played tonight.
It's Bob Lovell of Indiana Sports Talk fame coming up later on tonight and tomorrow night. Give me a couple of things you will be focused in on tonight.
Well, I think, again, you're at this point in the year, you're looking at those top seeds. You're looking at those number ones in the poll, and you're looking to continue to do what you do. And I think it's, you've got some great matchups. Some teams are getting better and better. I mean, there are some really good basketball teams. If you look at the boys' side, especially, and we're used to this, it seems quite a bit. Central Indiana, the metropolitan area, is loaded again. You know, the amazing story to me right now is Fishers is every bit as good as they were a year ago, and they were pretty spectacular last year. But Lawrence North is a fantastic team. They've played well. So, you know, pairing show on the boys' side is going to be unbelievably important. And the same thing on the girls' side. You know, Warren Central, we talked about the run they're having. And it's one of those particular things where, John, you're at a point now where you're starting to put some things together, especially on the girls' side. You need to maintain where you are. If you're still looking, if you're still searching for things, I think you're in a big problem if you haven't figured things out right now, and you want to try to maintain some momentum. You understand that. It's important. But if you're still looking around trying to find some answers, good luck on that. I'm not sure you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, well, I've been talking about that in detail with the Colts here recently, so that's a pretty good crossover you just made right there in terms of the professional football team right here. Hey, Bob Lovell is with us. Before I let you go, I know you're going to also be focused. You've got Purdue, obviously, from last night, but you got IU this weekend in Iowa, Purdue and Nebraska. I believe that's coming up on Sunday, is it not, too?
Right,
and obviously the Pacers later on tonight. A lot of stuff still. And Butler, this may be the most disappointing season that we have seen in a while because they don't have it, and if they do have it, they sure as hell can't figure it out.
Well, the hard thing for them, John, is that Big East is so good, and if you're just a little bit off, if you haven't been able to put things together, which they have, I mean, they're close. I mean, they're in games, they're close, they're competitive, can't push through, can't get those closeouts that you need. And it's an unforgiving league, by all means, one of the more unforgiving leagues in the country. And so that's what makes it frustrating for everybody involved.
It's Bob Lovell, Indiana Sports Talk, later on tonight and tomorrow night. Listen, he's going to entertain regardless of some of these cancellations that will be flying in here. But we love you, my brother. Hey, I'm at home tonight, so if you need me.
Stay by your phone.
Yeah, if you need me to fill a segment or two, I'm there for you, okay?
You're my man. I appreciate it, John.
All right, Bob, thank you. Bob Lovell, Indiana Sports Talk. Express Pro Tire and Auto, always bringing Bob to you every Friday right here on this particular show. You know, Marty just sent me something. Hell, I don't even know where I got it from. Facebook? Marty sent me this. The blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to trash anyone as I'm trashing them. Each year, it's been a couple of games away. Maybe remember the Mike Pagel or Jeff George days. Still a fan no matter what. I'm not asking anybody not to be a fan. All right, I'm going by what the fans are telling me. And they think, oh, this is BS. And they're not wrong. And it has been. And if you're looking back at the Pagel or the Jeff George or the Trudeau days, it doesn't take much. The reflection looks back at you now. We're reliving that. We're reliving basically 88 through 95 right now. Seriously, you go 88 through 95, that's what we're living. I even go back to like 86 through 95. It's coming around again like a stinking boomerang. It's coming around again like fashion, like my parachute pants. That's who they are. And that's what I'm saying you have to identify. Because if you believe that, hey, you're close because of last year, you're not close. Just consider the absolute train wreck the AFC South is. And how you were eliminated with almost a month to go in the season. That alone will show you how off the pace they are. Thank you, Marty, for that. 239-1070 is the number. I owe some people some calls. We'll start with Eric on line 2. Eric, thank you for joining the show.
Hey, JMV. I was listening to Ballard's press conference earlier today, and I feel the same way you do, along with a bunch of other Colts fans. And I want all the Indiana sports teams to do good, just like all of us would naturally want. But when you listen to Ballard and he says, and multiple times he pointed out 2 particular games where he saw really good things out of Richardson. I couldn't believe that the 2 games that he would say is the New England game and the Detroit game. The Detroit game, I think Richardson was like 11 out of 28. In the New England game, Richardson was 12 out of 24. And in one of those games, he threw like a 109 yards, and his average is like 4.7 yards a pass. I'm not sure why he multiple times would point out those two games. It kind of shows you where his mind's at. Like,
well, and here's where his mind is. Eric, here's what that means. You have to point something out because that's directionally where you're going. The piece that you want to hear is at least there's recognition of trying to bring somebody in actual competition for that gig. So he's saying about Richardson what he has to say because he's going to be soaking in that again next year. All right, but at the same time, at least you recognize you have to bring somebody else in. I mean, they're selling something that they have to believe in right now at a low amount. You okay? New England fourth quarter, great. Well, New England sucks. Yeah, all right. The Jets, well, the Jets suck. Well, the Jets have a great deep, whatever they're trying to sell. There's not a lot out there to sell, so they're doing what they can, knowing that they have to live with that coming up next year. There's really nothing more than that.
And I got a question for you. You look at a team like Minnesota where they're going to have to make a choice between a quarterback that they just drafted like top 5 overall or whatever it was, or pay Sam Darnold like $40 million a year. And people are out there saying, "Well, go after Sam Darnold." I disagree with that. Like, you have the 14th pick, and I would rather almost take and call Minnesota and give the 14th pick for J.J. McCarthy than pay Sam Darnold $40 million a year and have him end up like the quarterback he was in Carolina.
Yeah, they're not going to do either thing. They're going to end up drafting. They're going to end up bringing in somebody like Justin Fields, and that's going to be the competition. And if all this thing falls through, they're going to lean on the fact that you can go back into the quarterback pool next year. The house, then I would assume that then Jim will clean the house, and if that doesn't work at all, and you'll go back to the drawing board with what you believe to be, what everybody believes to be a more robust quarterback class. That's how that's going to go.
All right. Well, thanks, JMV.
Eric, you call me anytime. Thank you very much. Ryan says, in the car with my wife right now, I told her I'm a professional snowy road driver from driving an S10 through Heltonville, Indiana growing up. And you let her know she's in safe hands. Just throw sandbags in the bed. Exactly. I didn't have sandbags. I had chopped wood in my Chevy S10 in high school. We had chopped and split wood that I put in the back for weight. Matt writes this: Ballard is like the significant other that you need to break up with that keeps telling you that they're going to change. Usually ends up well, right? Bill Cash says 70 east, 30 miles an hour. John says little 465 weather update for you. It's blank. Chris Norton says the roads suck and everyone is driving slow. Then driving like jackasses. From Chris. Quick break, we'll come back. Pacers, Golden State tonight, but it's not the Golden State team that you would expect. I shall explain. Voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fisher, Mike Wells, James Boyd, Gorman, busy show, your response, Ballard presser earlier today. And weather that is not good for the drive home, but this show is. Keep it locked in, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
It's not.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I know there's been a lot been said about accountability. Let me tell you this. Shane does and I do believe this. He does a good job holding guys accountable. He does. There's not. If a guy did something, it was late. Look, he handled it internally. Do I like all the things said in the media and not held internally? No, I don't. And the team heard my thoughts on that. I brought those players in the building. Okay, that directly falls on me, without question. And when you get, and the one thing I'll say is at least all but one put their name on it. Okay, the one that didn't put their name on it, that's even more damning on me, because that chicken wasn't man enough to put his name on it. That is losing football. Distractions are losing football.
Some of it falls on you, but now it's on the shoulders of the owner. Listen, you've had 8 years to figure out exactly what this is about. And all you're doing now is crossing your fingers and hoping. That's exactly what's being done. Like Marty just sent me something in Facebook. Well, I think we're close. Hey, listen, your leader just told you weren't close, even though your head coach 3 days ago said they were close. We're no longer inaccurate about this. They have all these years of football behind them. We have evidence on our side that explains this hasn't worked. And with this, it is up to the owner. That's the shoulders right now. That falls on his shoulders. JMV, I keep people saying, or reading people saying, sorry, that this was a much different Chris Ballard today, but I honestly didn't see it because it wasn't. He's saying all the right things. Chris normally says all the right things. I like Chris. But I can't come on here and say, well, because I like him, I think everything's working, because it's not. And I can't tell you I believe it's going to work if I don't believe it's going to work. This seemed to me to be very much the same song and dance. He's as media savvy as they come and an expert salesman. Did you sense a different tone from him? Not at all. That's exactly what you expected. He was going to own it, own a bad seat. It doesn't matter because the owner has voiced his approval and his support for another year. In that moment, you're going to say you're concerned and, hey, you hear it and the fans have a right, but honestly, all that really matters is what Jim Irsay has to say about it. So, nothing different. Mike's in Brooklyn, New York at 239-1070. Hello, Mike.
Hey, JMV. The Groundhog Day press conference was not surprising at all from Ballard. You know, I thought they missed the boat a little bit. I was hoping maybe Jim Irsay would have brought in Bill Murray to make a cameo appearance, maybe as the introduction. They could have played, Sonny and Cher, I Got You, Babe, at least give us a little something to laugh about,
Yeah, I think they're kind of out of options. They got to, like I said, you're just crossing your fingers and hoping at this point because you have zero evidence to support how this all of a sudden is going to turn around unless it's just a fortunate season where in the NFL you can turn it around in 1 year. But, yeah, the Colts haven't been able to do it. And here we are. So it's just a lot of good fortune that's being hoped for right now or being sold.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit on it, with the Jim Irsay thing. I mean, not facing reality. If you want to face reality, you have to understand how you got here. So
yeah, and you're right. That's what Chris talked about, not facing reality. The owner's the one not facing reality here. The reality is this hasn't worked. And why you want to continue to go with something that hasn't worked is beyond me. So,
I heard you talking with Chappell yesterday. So to me, what this is, Irsay got it right in 1998 when he hired Bill Polian. He said the words, "I didn't do a good job when I was the GM. Bill Polian is going to be in charge of everything." And from 98 to 2010, that's Bill Polian, I think, was the lead voice. Irsay took a back seat. Obviously, he's the owner, so he was involved and he had input. But I think driving the ship was Bill Polian. After the Super Bowl loss to the Saints, you could track it right back. That's when the downward spiral started. When Irsay, enough time had passed, he convinced himself, I think I could do a better job. And since then, I think it's been, with Grigson and Ballard, the reason why he fired Bill Polian and hired these guys was because he wanted a more prominent voice. He wanted to be the lead voice in, doing the job. An ego thing, whatever you want to call it. But that's why I think they've been there for so long, Grigson and Ballard, is because Irsay is ultimately calling the shots. He's not doing the logistics of the job. It's very similar to what Jerry Jones is doing in Dallas, except Jerry Jones doesn't care. He just puts himself in as the general manager, but he's not handling the day-to-day operations. He just pretty much, did you hear him last week? Jerry Jones said, yeah, I'm not going to get a GM because pretty much I'm going to make the decision anyway.
Yeah.
Why do I have to go through that BS?
Yeah.
So until that changes, that's where it's at. Hopefully something does change, because you can't sit here as a fan and say, okay, I just hope that it all falls apart next year. I'm hoping next year Ballard is the executive of the year and Steichen is coach of the year and Jim Irsay is holding up the Lombardi Trophy. I would love nothing better than to call you up and say, JMV, I'm glad those guys are in charge instead of listening to,
Hey, wait, listen, we'll be on the same train together. Mike in Brooklyn, I got to hit the top of the hour, but thank you for the call. Have a great weekend. We'll be on the same train right there, if that's the case. So Alex sent me this. Chris Ballard has never said the way that he built this team was wrong. That being said, I do need to see it, but I liked what I heard today. I'm not suggesting you don't like what you hear today. But what matters is whether or not you believe it. What do you believe? What do you believe in all this? He's always going to say things that you like. But do you believe it? Quick one on the other side. We'll have answers to that question. Your calls, Don Fisher, Mike Wells, James Boyd, Gorman, Little Wayne, tickets, Indy Ignite tickets. Hey, stay right there. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
Let me have a Diablo sandwich, a Dr. Pepper. Make it fast. I'm in a damn hurry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'll keep my discussions with Zaire between us. But what I will tell you is you can't win with distractions. Can't win with them. Can't create distractions.
Now, there are a lot of things you can't win with, and if that's one of them, it sounded to me like that even though he would not explain the conversations he had with Zaire Franklin, that he would rather not have Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed during that podcast. I would say do a podcast, but don't jack it up in the fashion in which you did. I want to take nothing away from Zaire Franklin. Some of the games where he had high-level play and being a Pro Bowler and all that, but the other part of it was stupid. And then continuing to move forward with it was even more stupid. Now, since then, he's apologized for it. He's owned it. So if everybody is going to take the ownership of Chris Ballard to heart, then you take the ownership of Zaire Franklin to heart as well. All this owners, I'm assuming these guys are massively across the board disappointed. Not just about this season, but those have been around, especially the past four. But what I asked of Alex a little bit earlier going to the break is, what do you believe in? Where's your belief? And if you believe this thing is going to be successful, I want you to tell me why. I want you to tell me why beyond just the hope of it. Because this entire situation is built on some sort of hope. There's not, let's face it, a lot of reality here. If there's reality, the reality of that is why it's not going to happen. There's more, as I mentioned, more evidence to side with me and my lack of belief and my apprehension to buy into what has been going on and what continues to go on. But if you've bought in, that's okay. I'm not asking you not to like what he said. You're always going to like what he says. That's what Chris does. Chris is better at that, at talking to you and convincing you of things than he has been at his general manager's job. There's something to say about that. Chris wouldn't like it, and I'm sure he's not thought about it. Chris would have a great communicating career doing this. He's going to convince you. There's zero wrong with that. That comes with the territory. He probably should pass a little bit of that over to Shane Steichen, who he doesn't want to be doing it, and he looks like that he can do it. But clearly, either Chris has had a class at doing it or just has learned from those. Hell, I don't know, whether it was John Dorsey or somebody like that in the past that have been very good. He's very good at that. But you want him to be very good at putting a winning product on the field, and let's face it, especially the past 4 years. Last 4 years, one playoff win in the last 6. You know what's happened in the last 8. A lot of excuses and zero success. But I want you to tell me what you believe in. Or I guess better yet, why you believe it. And I'm not going to be mad at you. Don Fisher coming up in a minute. Mike Wells, bottom of the hour. Chris is at 239-1070 right now. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you doing, JMV?
You're a believer in this thing right now?
Absolutely not. He's a snake oil salesman, man. He's got the gift of gab, and I'm talking about Chris Ballard. And as much as I want to believe him, it's just been too long. It's just festered, and it's causing so many wounds. And it doesn't help that a lot of the players and stuff are going out and doing podcasts and all the stupid stuff that they're doing. But he is a survivor. And that's what Chris Ballard is. He is a survivor, and you can't tell me when he gets upset about players making comments that are finally coming to the forefront, whoever didn't put their name on it or did put their name on it is irrelevant. The fact that it shows there's turmoil in your house.
Yes, the fact that it exists is the issue, 100%. That's what matters.
There's turmoil in your house. You got to look at it like this is your property, man. You got to own it, and he tries to own it, but it's always something that's just a little bit off with it. When he comes to these press conferences, it's always something about, a fake bravado of being, like you just said, if he cared about the product would change. Bill Polian was hypersensitive to making sure that he oversaw everything for that specific reason. That's what's so frustrating to Colts fans right now. That's why Pat McAfee isn't in the suite. And we got Zaire Franklin fake handshaking the suite. That's got to stop. McAfee's right.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too about McAfee. Chris has a mixture of would-be contrition with bravado. I thought you brought up a great word with bravado. He doesn't want to lose that, but he's trying to be contrite at the same time. It is an odd mixture, but that's not even the point. You're on point with you're just looking at the results. No matter how stubborn, how hard-headed, no matter how well you speak, if you're not getting your job done, somebody's going to hand you walking papers at some point.
Yeah.
That's just the way that it is.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm kind of I think it's just a combination of timing, too, with Mr. Irsay's health and things that are going on. That could lead a little bit to that because he's not been as hands-on, and he's got to kind of tone it down, too. But maybe at some point when the transition occurs, because it's not going to last forever, the two daughters are going to step up and finally be tired of it. Because at some point it's got to change. It can't. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. It hasn't changed. So saying I'm going to sign more free agents and saying, okay, well, I'll believe it when I see it, Chris. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I am all for a one-year transition, but how long have we waited on that? How long are you supposed to wait? And, again, this is no longer on the shoulders of Chris. All right, it's off his shoulders. This is on the shoulders. This is Jim Irsay's shoulders right now. This is where this lies.
I know Jim cares about the players and he cares about the city, and he's been a great owner to this point. But Bill Polian you got to find that guy. There's a guy out there, and I don't want to see him get fired. Chris Ballard's probably a great guy. I don't know the man from anything, but I bet you he'd probably be a great guy to sit down and have a beer with and seems like a genuine person. But, man, you have milked this to the I mean, where's the cookies?
Milking. That's another great milking. Yes, this has been milked. Exactly.
Boy, oh boy.
I just don't know at this point, Chris. And thank you for the call. Have a great weekend. Drive safely out there. I want to know somebody out there that is pro this effort right now and is a believer in it. I want you to tell me why. And believe me, I'm not going to dismiss you. You know I don't run that way. But tell me why. And what reason is there for you to have this firm belief? Hey, Chris said this right. I mean, hell, none of you out there want to go out and just, hell, you're fired. But it's not like you just had a season of lack of results. You're going to go into year number 9. At what point do you say enough is enough? And as the Colts haven't, and if you're a believer, I want to know from you why you do. Just beyond you being a big-time fan. I won't even reference you as a fanboy right here. Just a big-time fan. Yeah, no matter what, I'm going to be a fan. Well, I understand that here. But why do you believe in this operation? What leads you to believe in this operation? You and me in just a second. Wells, bottom of the hour. James Boyd, Gorman after 5. Don Fisher, voice of the Hoosiers. On the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hello, Don. How are you?
Good, John. How you doing, bud?
Fantastic. Where are you right now?
I'm literally leaving my house to head to the airport to get on an airplane.
Are you going to Iowa? My grandma used to call Iowa, Iowa. You going to Iowa?
I'm going to Iowa. Yes, I am.
Hey, buddy, I thought about our conversation last week. Again, we've got more evidence of one big being the deal. It's funny, we've got evidence in the past with the Pacers because that happened with Miles Turner and Domas Sabonis. You know, one big was all that basically a team could handle. Have we seen this team, and I think we have, play much better with the one big mentality, even though I don't want to dismiss at all just how valuable Malik Renew is, but there's an argument to be had, is there not, in favor of the one big mentality right now?
Well, I would think that there is, based on what we saw in those two previous ball games, or three actually now, with Southern Cal being the third. But Umar Ballo has just taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and playing really, really well at this point. And I like the way the spacing has taken place here of late. And I'm not saying that it can't happen with Malik on the floor at the same time. I just don't know if it can, if you know what I'm saying. Because it hasn't looked very cohesive up to this point in the year until recently, since Malik has been out. And here's the thing. I'm sure that there's going to be times when you want to play both the guys at the same time. But I'm not sure if that's the formula for most of the time, if you know what I'm saying.
It's voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fisher, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So it's worked out so well since that random photo allegedly at the upstairs pub was taken of Ballo. I want somebody to take one of Carlisle here soon. Maybe that will help him too.
Carlisle. You want Kanan to go to a bar?
Yeah, get it. Well, I mean, there's been whatever. Hey, Ballo's played a lot better since that photo allegedly was taken and that moment occurred. And let me say, offensively, Carlisle needs a little something right now because he can't hit his ass with both hands, to be honest with you.
Well, he struggles. He's been struggling all year with his shot. I think he's had 2 ball games in which he was able to get double figures. I haven't gone back and looked at that, so I can't verify that other than the fact that I can't remember more than 2. So, but he has struggled. You're right. I mean,
he kept shooting the other night, though, man. I mean, he kept putting it up, and it wasn't happening.
Yeah, it really wasn't. And Kanan, I think, is so good defensively. I think he gives him something at that end of the floor for sure. But we just haven't seen it at the offensive end on a consistent basis. And hopefully that just gets better because I think he's a talented kid.
Yeah, well, there's one guy on this team. There may be somebody else you would think of, but that's one guy on this team that, with the way that they've recently taken off, you would like to see this guy really take off with him. But obviously his offense and the lack of shot-making ability. And Don, what's interesting about him is it hasn't been all from distance. He's been all over the floor. They got him a look on the inside about 8 feet away on a shot that really wasn't well defensed, and he front-rimmed that thing too. He's just discombobulated offensively altogether right now.
Yep, he's having some problems. There's no doubt. All I know is that Coach Woodson would say, I gotta find a way to help him.
Yeah, well, that's why I said the picture. Somebody take a picture of him at the upstairs pub. That helped Ballo because we were getting on him at that time. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah. So, and you know what? He is starting to play that role that everybody expected. And that's a good thing. I mean, really, he's not a great defender, but just kind of standing there and showing a little resistance is going to be good enough oftentimes because he's so damn big. But, man, offensively, he has shown so much. He's had some dominant moments in the paint for that team.
He really has. And I think I just think he feels better about how things are going right now. It takes a while sometimes for some of these guys to acclimate, and I get that. But they've been around each other for a summer, basically, all summer and through the fall practices and those kinds of things. But until you get into really playing ball games, it takes a while to get, everybody together and have the right chemistry. And all of a sudden, it seems like Indiana's got that. Now, they're going to get challenged this week because there's no doubt this Iowa ball club, they are capable of putting a bunch of points on the scoreboard. They're averaging 90 a ball game, 89.9 points a contest is their average, which is the best in the Big Ten and second in the country. So they're going to get Indiana's going to have its hands full defensively guarding these guys. And the one thing that we've seen in the past, and this is again about consistency, is the lack of thereof at the start of ball games. And you do not want to get down to these guys, 10 points early on because they're not easy to come back on because they shoot it so well.
Yeah. Now you look at Freeman and Sanford and Dix. I think they have 4 guys, including those 3, basically scoring in double figures. And as you mentioned, game to game, they have some high-quality, high-powered offense to deal with.
Absolutely, and that's always been the nature of Fran McCaffrey's teams. They like to run, they like to get up and down the floor, they like to kick it inside and then kick it out. Owen Freeman is a good post player. He is solid and does a nice job of scoring himself. So they've got a lot of weapons, and that's something that Indiana. I don't know that Indiana's faced a team like that up to this point in the year. Maybe Gonzaga. I wasn't there for the Bahamas game, so I didn't see it. But all I can tell you is I don't think Indiana's faced a team with that many good shooters on the ball club. And there's no doubt you can't let any of them get loose or they're going to bury you.
Yeah, it's an interesting stretch at Iowa and then back at home on Tuesday against Illinois, at Ohio State, at Northwestern. You'll get into some longer trips coming up later in the Big Ten campaign, but good start. I think you'd have to see all the way around for this Hoosier team and compared to looking at all these other teams, the upper echelon of the Big Ten, which is absolutely loaded with teams, if for nothing else.
Yeah, I think the Big Ten this year, if you take away maybe 5 of the 20 ball clubs, the rest of those 15 are all right there capable of beating anybody any given time. And I think even those 5 are capable of doing that as well. But the 5 we're talking about are not as good as the other 15, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, will they wait on you if you're late for the plane?
Well, they're coming up from Bloomington to Indianapolis to fly out of Indy, so they won't have to wait on me today.
Do you get to park in a special place?
Oh, no. I'm just like everybody else. I have to find a parking place.
You're the Indiana Broadcaster of the Year. Does not need to find a stinking parking place, buddy. Come on.
Well, you ask those other guys if after they've won if they get a special parking place. Nobody has. Did you get one?
Yeah, I won in 2020 when there were no sports.
No, that's a lie. That's a lie.
There were no sports. They go, wait a minute, there are no sports this year, so what dumbass can we give this award to? Ah, there it is, JMV. That's it.
No.
Yes.
You deserved it. And you deserve it again. At some point in time, you'll get it again.
Everybody had COVID. They go, okay, we got to give it to somebody here. All right, well, he's the only guy that evidently didn't have COVID.
That's pretty good, big boy.
Ooh, Don Fisher, voice of the Hoosiers. 8 o'clock tomorrow night. 7 p. Your coverage begins over on 93 WIBC. Hey, any news football-wise? It looks like the transfer portal's been cooking down there for Coach Cignetti and the Hoosiers, has it not?
Absolutely. I think they've got 17 guys now out of the portal. And, you know, he's filling places that they need spots filled. And that's always the key. The thing I like about Chris Cignetti is that he watches a ton of film, and he's looking for the right guys in those positions that he's looking for them in. And he won't pull the trigger on somebody unless he's pretty confident that these guys are going to be able to fill the bill. So I'm excited about what we've seen out of the portal thus far, and I don't think there's any question that we're going to have another really good football team next year.
Did you have lunch with our friend Ted Bishop yesterday?
I didn't have lunch with him. I was with him last evening. We went to another friend's house. Went to another friend's house last evening and enjoyed ourselves watching the football game.
What, did you play canasta and watch football? Is that what you did?
No, the ladies were there too. We all watched football.
Whoa!
Them, so.
You play bridge? Do you guys all get together and play bridge like they do on Andy Griffith?
I don't even know what that is.
I don't either. It's a card game.
One.
Yeah, it's a card game.
Yeah, I know it is. We don't play bridge and we don't play canasta. If I'm going to play something, it's either poker or euchre.
I remember one time I go to my girlfriend in high school's house. Hey, New Year's Eve, come on over. And I go, and they're playing canasta. I go, my God, why'd you invite me to this?
Were they all 75 or plus?
Yeah, well, the one that the ringleader of the canasta game was 75 plus. There's no doubt about that. But I thought, I don't even enjoy card games, so this is going to suck.
And
it did.
Well, Yeah, if I was playing Canasta, I know it would suck.
Yeah, no doubt.
Tell you that right now.
Hey, safe travels, and we'll check in next week. And like I said, if Carlisle needs a little help, maybe a photograph or something late night at a bar before a game or something like that, we'll turn this thing around for him. A little slump buster.
Well, I'll put a little bug in his ear and see if that will work.
You got it. Don, safe travels to you, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
It's Don Fisher, voice of the Hoosiers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm curious. This is Sean Allen who writes this, talking about Ballard. He said his thinking needs to change. What more can you do to milk out of saying something? I guess we will see, plain and simple. Do questions solve problems? I ask this. What Sean needs to tell me, because clearly he is a massive supporter, regardless of any of these outcomes and results, and you're kind of blindly looking forward with a lack of evidence. Sean's got to tell me what he believes in here. That's all I ask. If you do, that's fine, but I just got to know what you're believing in on this. Like, it didn't make a damn bit of sense to me. I mean, anymore, I don't even put this on Chris anymore. This is a Jim issue now. This is on his shoulders. At some point, will results matter, or just going to be doing something that's easy? And what about that reflection in the mirror? What do you actually see? Jerome's at 239-1070. Give me Jerome before the break, and Mike Wells coming up in just a bit. Hello, Jerome. How are you?
Sean, I got to call it like I see it, man. You're being too nice. This has been a problem ever since we kept Bacano over Bruce Arians. Let's just start there. Seriously. This guy, Ballard's not going to change anything, man. He said he's going to change. That means that on draft day, we're going to start a 6th-rounder instead of a 7th-rounder on a Pro Bowler on opening day. This is crazy talk. I mean, he's not keeping Richardson up to speed. This guy, he drafted this guy. He looked at the talent, went with the hype, and he just rolled the dice. I think that Richardson right now is the NFL version of Kwame Brown. Seriously, all that talent, all the outside stuff, all the intangible stuff, but he doesn't have anything upstairs. And we keep running back with the same guys. This is ridiculous. This has been going on for 9 years. And Irsay needs to get out of the way, man. This is just ridiculous. I mean, you can't sit up here and say you have faith in this guy. I mean, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to trade a 1st-rounder for about 9 5th-rounders, and he's going to tell you he's got to find in the draft and come, I don't know, you might be the quarterback on opening day come next year.
I just might be. I doubt it, though. Jerome, what else do you have here? I was being too nice? People are suggesting I'm being too harsh. You say I'm being too nice.
You're too nice, man. We have a crack baby running the organization.
All right, Jerome, thanks for that.
One more thing, man.
Yeah.
The Pacers, please do not trade for Cam Johnson. We do not need Jeremy Lamb 2.0. If you're going to only have 2 dogs on the team, which is TJ and Naismith, why are you going to trade one of them? I
would, regarding Cam Johnson, and thanks for the call, Jerome, outside of the one comment. Thanks for the call. Cam Johnson, I wouldn't want to give up what they have to give up. I would suggest if the price were to ever come down, because I do like Cam Johnson, but I think the price tag had seemed to be both Matherin and Walker. And I don't know about anybody else. I'm not ready at all to suggest that Matherin needs to go. You can say what you want about Jarris Walker. He's played better recently, but Cam Johnson is a much higher level player. But anything involving Matherin, I just think that he's an essential need with this team. In some games, he hasn't had it. He didn't shoot it well the other night. I just happen to look at him as an essential need and a growing essential need at that. Thought. Quick break. We'll come back. Mike Wells on the other side. So, too harsh or too nice? And then what gives you any indication whatsoever that things are going to change and all of a sudden you have significant belief? Just kind of curious about that. Chris Ballard a little bit earlier today, we're playing back some of what he said comment-wise, and we're ourselves factoring in our commentary. 239-1070, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, AAA.com. Become a AAA member today. I'm telling you, a day like today, it is an absolute must. Your weather reports and your traffic on the way home reports as well. Pacers, Warriors tonight. The Warriors aren't going to look like the Warriors whatsoever. No Steph Curry, no Draymond Green. Pacers, Warriors this evening. I shall explain. Mike Wells, James Boyd, Gorman, and more still to come. Sit tight. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
with JMV.
It takes him a second to get on the stool because he's under 5 feet tall.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Your ride home with this show. Be careful out there. I just took a look on the circle of the snow falling. Coming down pretty hard right now. Give me some updates, Chris Ballard conversation and more, but from ESPN Radio, and has the Slow Jam re-entry. It's Mike Wells on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Mike.
Last night I saw you standing, and I started pretending I knew you. You knew me too. And just like a Roni, you were too shy. But you weren't the only, 'cause so was I. And I dreamed of you ever since. I built up my confidence. Next time you come my way, I'll know what to do.
There you go, Mike Wells.
Can we talk?
Hitting all the right notes right there, Mike Wells.
I love me some Tevin Campbell, man.
93, Tevin Campbell right there with Mike Wells, the Slow Jam re-entry. You hit all the right notes with that, Kevin. I thought Tevin Campbell was actually here. That's how great that was.
Oh, man, listen, ever since Tevin was trying to hit on our girl Ashley on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air,
yeah,
I was like, okay, if Tevin got game like that in the 90s, let me see what I got. And I didn't have the same game.
Yeah, so nice, though. Nice Mike Wells version of Can We Talk right there. And Tevin Campbell. Hey, did you hear any of the Chris Ballard conversation that he had with the local media?
I did. I was actually down in Bloomington getting my office stockpiled up for classes resuming next week at IU. And I probably listened for about the first 30 minutes or so. I will say this. I have listened. I've either participated or listened to every one of Chris Ballard's press conferences since he got hired in February of 2017. And in the past, especially the Carson Wentz year, he has acknowledged when things haven't worked out. But I feel like the one today, unless he's a hell of an actor and he deserves a star in Hollywood, he came across as a man who essentially had to eat crow and had been very humbled from a standpoint of, believing that his way is the only way to get things done.
So, with that, do you believe that he will change? What will he change? And I would argue, as I did earlier today, that they are so entrenched in this 8-year process, and especially the last 4 majorly disappointing seasons, that there's going to be no quick bounce back. And I know a lot of it is on the shoulders, rest on the shoulders here of Anthony Richardson and the development or lack thereof. But what is there honestly to believe in? Even if he did eat crow, even if he did feel contrite today, unlike other times. And I would argue I've heard this before, but that's okay. What is there actually to believe in on this?
Well, I will say, if I were Jim Irsay when I met with Chris Ballard, it would be an ultimatum. It's either you change your approach or you're looking for another job. You can say, if you say you're not going to change it right now, let's just cut ties now. You're done. Or I need to see a different way on how you're going to tackle things this offseason when it comes to looking at free agency, trades, and the draft. You have to do it because your way clearly is not working. And for some reason, we're going to run it back again next year. And I want to see if you're truly going to change. But one thing you brought up a great point, Jay. You just said, it's not like it's going to change instantly. So, okay, let's just say it changes a little bit, and the Colts go from 8-9 to 9-8 next year and still miss the playoffs. That's not much of a change. And one thing, I'm sure you might bring it up at some point in this segment, but one of the many glaring things that he brought up was he's got to bring in a quarterback for competition next year. You took Anthony Richardson with the number 4 overall pick in 2023, and now you're saying you got to bring in competition for this kid. That's yet another sign that, hey, we are not sold on Anthony Richardson, and we may have basically effed this pick up by taking him and taking him at number 4.
So Mike Wells of ESPN Radio on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Yeah, as I mentioned, I maintain, I think that this whole thing that he put together, his process, his blueprint, is so deeply entrenched that I don't know what you get out of showing significant change one year to the next. And they don't have enough right now that's believable for me in the not-so-distant future and even in the longer term. That's why I'd mention this. I always thought of the NFL, and I know that a lot of people aren't in on, snap firings and all that, and I can get with it, but I am in on if you identify that things aren't working, the quicker that you identify that and do something about it, the better for your organization. And it just seems like when you get this far down the road, and I even mentioned that with Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson in mind. I kind of feel the same way about them right now. I don't have any reason to believe that this thing is altogether going to work, and that's why I was an advocate of making a change and making a change right now. I just think that they're so entrenched with what they're doing that unless you get a major shot of good luck or good fortune, it's all going to be for naught and incredibly similar next season to what we have witnessed in the past 2, or either one of the past 2.
What was your reaction when you saw that statement come out from Jim Irsay and said, "Hey, let's run it back again. Let's do." I mean, and I don't mean what your reaction was on your show on Monday, but your reaction when you saw the tweet or however you received the news.
He sees something different than everybody else does. I don't think what he views is reality. And a lot of this, again, you're talking to somebody that has a significant angle here on what he believes. I don't believe this is going to work because I haven't seen, again, the evidence of it working, and I don't believe all of a sudden it's gonna. And I just don't I think it was much easier to go one more year. Part of me kind of understands it. If you're going to ask me, do you understand it? Here's the aspect I understand. So you go next year with Chris and with Shane and with Anthony. You go next year if that doesn't work, and then you clean sweep, and then you go new general manager's head coach, and then a more robust draft class for quarterback coming out of college. That's the only reason that I can possibly believe in what they're doing. But I've also argued against in the past them kicking this particular can down the road. I think you're still viewing the inevitable right now, but at least I understand a little bit the option that they could have after one more year. I do get that.
I mean, they're kicking a rusted can down the street right now. This can is rusted out. I just think there is zero sign of hope or optimism to say this is going to get turned around.
Yeah,
I have zero optimism that, okay, next year is going to be different. I feel like way too often, way too many people have fallen for the banana in the tailpipe. That, okay, they say this is going to happen and they're going to build it a certain way, and all of a sudden they're going to be rolling again. And that simply is not happening with this franchise.
No, I don't see it either. And I'm trying to deal in reality. It just when people ask if there's one thing I do think is reasonable, it's that, and not much more, because I think we've been there and seen it all, And again, they have a ton of stuff, Mike, going on, obviously, within this organization, just well beyond the disappointment on the field. You got stuff in the locker room that DeForest Buckner talked about and brought up, that Chris brought up a little bit earlier today. You got two dudes defensively with a podcast that was a pain in the ass this year. I mean, obviously, Zaire Franklin, I guess, has learned his lesson from that, but it was a pain in the ass this year. You've got anonymous people, a player coming out and saying stuff about no direction with the team. You know, that's on the shoulders of Chris Ballard. But I have said this, Mike, this is no longer, to me, a Ballard issue. This now is a Jim Irsay issue. He's the one. I mean, anything that happens right now, this is because of Jim's decision. This is not the Ballard stuff you should be used to and just go, okay, well, that's exactly what we expected. Now, this is the Jim issue. That's kind of how I view it.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, yeah, shoot. Hey, Ballard's like, man, my owner still believes in me, so I got a job still. Not just, I mean, listen, had Jim Irsay gotten fired, Chris Ballard he'd be in position to get another job. But the fact that Ballard's like, oh, my owner still believes in me, so I'm going to keep trying until we get this right. So, no, you're 100% right. This is completely a Jim Irsay issue on what's going on.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there, from fans to advertisers, that deserve better with all this. And I just think that if you easily more recognize the situation and deal with it, I brought this up earlier this week. I used to make fun of 2022 and what the clown show, as I described it, and bringing in Jeff Saturday and doing that. But I still like that version of Jim better, the proactive Jim. It was the wrong decision-making Jim, but it was the proactive Jim. I like that a lot better. There's been way too much that have gone wrong with this organization for this just to be kind of swept under the rug and, hey, we're going to give it one more try because I believe in it.
100%. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it. I mean, you're right. It's just, and again, I've said this all the time. I stay in touch with quite a few people. You brought it up last Friday on how you had Mike Chappell on, I think the day before on that Wednesday, and Chappell has covered this team since they arrived on the Mayflower back in '84, had the pulse and said, hey, he thinks they're going to run it back again.
Yeah.
And, I talked to Stephen Holder, prior to Irsay's text, and he goes, my gut says they're going to bring it back. So it is. I thought the whole time. I mean, I kept feeling it was time to make a change because you can't keep going with the hope of next year is going to be different. And they weren't even every team in the division has won it twice since the last time the Colts have. This is. I've been here for 20 years this month, and this is the worst I've seen the franchise. Even worse than the year when Manning was out, because you knew they were lining themselves up to either take Andrew Luck or RG3. Clearly, we knew it was going to be Andrew Luck, but you knew that they were going to get their franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. In the meantime, even with the disappointment that Houston is. You'd rather be in that situation right now than any other. And I would also argue the fact that I thought when Chris said that they weren't close today, obviously Shane 3 days ago said they were close. And Chris is more accurate than Shane. They're not. They're not close. You were eliminated from your own division about a month to go in the season, and the division was incredibly crappy once again. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to figure out, but it's incredibly disappointing because there's just no real reason to believe the stuff that is continued to be sold to you at this point. And it's been that way for a while. And I can understand why the fans have just simply had enough.
Yep. Ooh, man. So, hey, I bet you've had a hell of a week, huh?
Hell of a week, Mike Wells. Hell of a week. How about you?
Oh, man, listen, I've enjoyed sitting back and not having to deal with this nonsense on a day-to-day basis, just simply run my mouth on radio like you do. So
yes.
It's easier to run our mouths on radio about it than have to sit there and be sitting right there in the press conference knowing.
I just told James this. There's nothing I'm more sick about talking about than this. But it's, like playing a Bee Gees song in 1978. Got to do it. That's what everybody wants. But this whole thing just wears my ass out over and over and over again. It does. And I'm not working a jackhammer. This isn't hard. But you just go, okay, how many different ways can you dissect or analyze the same damn thing? That's where we are right here. My brother, you have yourself a fantastic weekend. Tell the fam I said hello. Tell that girl I said hi to.
I will do, brother. You be good.
Mike Wells of ESPN Radio on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Gorman, James Boyd after 5. I've got volleyball tickets to give away, too. You want to do that coming up here? We'll do that at the 5 o'clock hour? All right. Volleyball tomorrow, the Indy Ignite. I'll explain on the other side. I've got tickets for you. Sit tight.
Five, The Fan.
It's not in my nature to I'm not going to hamstring this organization for the next 3 or 4 years. No, we will do what we need to do to build the best team we can build that can get this thing going forward. And if we think it's a situation where, okay, this is worth it, we would do it. But it's one where I'm not going to be irresponsible. I wouldn't do that.
That's Chris Ballard. Does anybody else out there like me, could we just simplify this? Why in the hell are we still having this discussion going into year 9? Year 9. Hey, I get when you guys say, hey, numbnuts, for the coach, it's year 2. For the quarterback, he's 22, and it's year 2. I will get that. But for the general manager, this is year 9. Why are we still having this? Does that not drive you nuts like it drives me nuts? Can we not simplify this whole thing? I can't believe I have one person. Now, I have the Sean guy that's all pissy with me about Chris Ballard. How is there one person? This has nothing to do with him as a human being. I'm talking about the operation, the program of a football team. I'm not going to hamstring an organization. What the? You're going into year 9. One playoff win. Haven't been in 4 years. No division titles in 10 when every other team in this crapwater division has won 2. I got news for you. It's been hamstrung, if that's even a word. I don't know if that's a word. Is that a word, hamstrung? Is it? Good for me. Got news for you. It's been hamstrung. Good Lord. Why is it necessary? 8 years. I'm just kind of curious why anybody would buy any part of it right now. And I get that some of you could be taken in by the contrition, the ownership, and that's fine. You could be taken in because you're a fan and you're just always going to hope. I get that. But believing it and then wondering why somebody might be so outspoken in their non-belief. Not going to hamstring the organ, but 8 years. And this is going to get year number 9. So, yeah, I think you could simplify it with that particular quote alone. Incredible. Do I need a break right here, or do I have time to get to somebody? All right, I'll tell you what. If you're on hold, I'll get to you guys. So sit tight right there. James Boyd was a part of the action a little bit earlier today on The Athletic. James is going to join us. We've got the Gorman, who I think was also out there. He joins us. He and Matt Taylor have for you the last word, which begins coming up later on. Tonight, we have the Pacers with really not anybody recognizable. Does Trace playing? Have we seen Trace Jackson-Davis? I know he was a question mark. No Steph Curry, no Draymond Green. I think Kuminga is out. I haven't seen anything regarding Chris Mullin or Tim Hardaway or Alton Lister or Rick Barry. But it seems like most of the Golden State team this era, modern day, is going to be missing in this game later on tonight. We'll talk about that a little bit more coming up at the 5 o'clock hour as well. Hey, by the way, volleyball action, the inaugural season, first game, Orlando tomorrow, Fisher's Event Center. I'm going to be up there, so why not you? Got a couple of passes to give away right here, do we? Couple of passes. Where are these seats? Are they good seats? Are they prime?
I believe they're floor side, aren't they?
Floor? These are prime seats. Who wants to go? Number 9 at 239-1070. Who wants to go? Are they selling cocktails at this thing too? Do we know?
I would hope so.
All right, I'm going to be up there tomorrow. JMV Takeover is a little delayed tomorrow night. I'll be up there. Number 9, I'm going to see you up there. Number 9 is going to go on us. The Indy Ignite professional volleyball team embarks on a journey coming up in Fishers tomorrow. Number 9 at 239-1070 will go. That Lil Wayne tickets on the way. Sit tight, drive safely, and be cautious on your drive home or wherever you're going on this Friday afternoon. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
Ahoy, Ploy.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
26 years ago today, everybody. How much did you enjoy it? How much do you still enjoy it? Have you ever seen it? January the 10th, 1999 through June the 10th, 2007, we loved on HBO The Sopranos. I've played this on the JMV Takeover a number of times, too. This is a great song.
It's a good song.
Yeah. That drive back to Jersey from New York and the intro is pretty awesome.
That's a great title sequence.
Good Lord, I love this. Have you seen the start of it? Have you seen all the seasons through?
I'm still working. I'm still on like the first season, but I'm enjoying it a lot.
See, and unlike others, I enjoyed the finale. Most people hated the finale, but I enjoyed it. Sopranos, this date in history. What did I say? 26 years ago today, The Sopranos debuted on HBO. If you haven't seen it, I would advise you to at some point. If you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Gorman, bottom of the hour. Don Fisher a little bit earlier. Mike Wells of ESPN Radio a little bit earlier. Bob Lovell a little bit earlier. And Chris Ballard met with the media a little bit earlier. Lil Wayne tickets a little bit later. But presently on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he was a part of the fray a little bit earlier out at the West 56th Street location is from The Athletic, our friend James Boyd, who joins us now. Hopefully, James, you're not on the road, right? Are you stationary, not out in the slick weather and stuff?
Stationary, my man.
Nice.
Left the press conference right after to get home before the snow hits.
Well done. What were your thoughts right there? Was there a lot of stuff that you've heard being a part of this before? Anything new? Did anything stand out to you with Chris Ballard earlier today?
No, I felt like he approached it how he usually does. He falls on the sword. He accepts the blame. He beats himself up. But at the end of the day, like he said, he has to put action behind his words at this point to prove and earn that trust back from the fan base. So I know people were kind of giving him a hard time, and it's for that reason. We all were holding him accountable. But some of the fan base, it's like he can't say anything to really save face at this point. So it was basically like a 45-minute punching bag ceremony where we just teed off on the guy because he knew he couldn't really defend himself to the level that perhaps he wants to because of the product we've seen. It's just been the same thing year after year. So I wasn't surprised by anything that was said that took place. Or maybe I was a little surprised. When he asked me if I had kids, that was funny. But other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah, that's pretty funny right there. It's James Boyd of The Athletic on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Was there any reason other than under contract or other than maybe putting general manager, coach, and young quarterback together as to why this thing, especially at the general managing position, should live to see with employment a ninth year with Chris in mind? Because to me, there's not a lot of evidence that there is going to be all of a sudden a breakthrough turnaround with this team.
Great question. I actually asked him, do you think you've earned an opportunity to correct this, or do you believe you were just given one? And I guess it's a tough question, but I don't think that Chris Ballard can honestly say, I've earned another opportunity to fix this after looking at his 8-year resume. Now, that being said, I do think that when it comes to evaluating him, Anthony, and Shane, the way I look at it, or maybe reading the tea leaves, Jim Irsay views them all as a package deal, all three. And so he doesn't want to blow up one part of it or get rid of one part of it before he gives them at least one more year together to work together collectively. Now, I get it. If you tell me Chris Ballard should be gone, I understand. But at the same time, as I wrote earlier this week for The Athletic, I also understand why they kept it kind of status quo, because if you are going to invest in Anthony like you have so far, you might as well see it out because your other options aren't that great. You know, if you get to, we look at franchises that change the GM and then change the coach, change the quarterback, and it's not usually aligned, usually that does not lead to good things for your team. So we'll see, but I definitely think that next year is a make or break year for all three involved because It starts with the quarterback, and obviously he has to play better for even to give you a chance of winning.
James, why should anybody believe? Where's the evidence in belief? Is this all surrounded with fingers crossed and hope? Because I see zero evidence moving forward here. Do you?
There's not much hope. There's not much evidence. And again, this is Jim Irsay deciding to run it back and giving Chris Ballard an unprecedented leash that most team owners would never give a GM in any sport, quite frankly. And so I do think that the fans are right to be skeptical or be pessimistic because we just haven't seen the product or we haven't seen results or big results. We've seen the team be okay, have a chance, and then, as I've said on previous shows and things like that throughout this week with you all at 107.5 The Fan, it's giving these people just enough hope to break their heart at the end. I mean, the Colts are just good enough to keep you kind of watching, and then they break your heart at the end, which is what they did this year again. And I even asked Chris at the end of his press conference, why can't this team get over the hump in the big moments? And he said there's something they have to figure out. Because if you look at the last 4 or 5 years, every big game that they've had, they've lost. You know, they lost the Vegas game a few years ago. They lost in Jacksonville. They lost, last year against Houston. Gave them a pass for that. You got a backup quarterback. Then you come back this year, you lose in Denver, and you lose in terrible fashion against the Giants. And that's a problem, and that's a psychological thing that they have to figure out.
You put out that locker room video that took place after the overtime win and the regular season finale Sunday. I think you put that out. You saw that. It was on Colts.com. NFL Films had it as well. That was exactly the wrong tone at the wrong time. Did you take it that way, too, from Colts owner Jim Irsay?
Yeah, I looked at it through two lenses. On one hand, people are like, man, he should go to the locker room and tell them all they stink and the season's over. Why is he happy? You can't, in my opinion, be an owner and work your salt and walk into a locker room where guys, like Julian Blackman played through a torn labrum and Pitt played through a messed up back, Michael Pittman Jr. You can't walk in there and tell those guys, pack your bags, skip the farewell hugs. So I understand why he was kind of congratulatory and at least respectful towards them. Where I think he kind of maybe a bridge too far was saying that they were 1-0 in 2025 and he was happy that they kind of went to 8-9. That, to me, if you leave the 8-9 comment out, if you leave the 1-0 in 2025 comment out, if you say, hey, I respect you guys, we got to get better, thank you for your sacrifice this season, that's one thing. But to sit up there and kind of, come off as you're okay with what you're seeing, it's a bad look for the owner, and obviously something we haven't seen from a guy who often talks about Lombardi trophies and the glory days and winning in the upper quartile. So tough break for him. But I did appreciate Chris Ballard, who was the first person in the organization, to say they are just not close. Anthony said they're close as well. Shane Steichen said they're close. And he's even said there's no failure in sports. Today, Chris Ballard made it very clear they failed this season. They are not close, and they have to figure it out.
I will tell you this. I thought that Jim and that video in the locker room was more about, hey, everybody, look, Jim hasn't been seen since Dallas Clark was inducted into the Ring of Honor or heard from. So I think that was part of the reason why. And I thought he sounded really good.
Yeah, I mean, that was my biggest takeaway too, JMV. I didn't think that he was this, incompetent, bumbling owner. I thought that he was speaking fine. Obviously, his physical health and how he looks, I mean, I can't change that. But I thought as far as his mind and things like that, he sounded fine. And honestly, for anybody who's had interactions with Irsay or just heard him throughout the years, usually he does ramble. Usually he does go on and on. I felt like he was pretty measured in that locker room speech. And again, you have to remember, even though they shared that with the public, he wasn't speaking directly to the fans or to the fan base or season ticket holders. He was talking to his players and giving them the respect of, having finished another tough season in the NFL. So I could see it from his perspective. And honestly, if you look at that, what he said in the locker room versus what he said in his speech, or not in his speech, but in his letter to the fans, two different tones for two different audiences.
Yeah, it's James Boyd of The Athletic, who was at the press conference of Chris Ballard a little bit earlier today. Is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So can you count on changes? Chris Ballard talked about looking in the mirror and, looking at the real results. I would argue that really, organizationally speaking, they haven't done that for a long time now, especially the last 4 years. So let's just say, for example, all of a sudden they do decide to look what is reality in the mirror and do something about it. Would you expect a change, or are they so entrenched with the blueprint of Ballard right now? I mean, how are they going to be able to do that? What would you expect in this offseason from what Chris alluded to earlier today?
I definitely think that his comments about free agency, about cultivating a roster with more competition, the line he said about, your butt not being out there if you can't play and if you're not comfortable, I think that's a good thing. He was just saying that they had too many players that were comfortable this past year, too many guys who may have had, starting roles or big roles when they didn't really earn them. They just kind of had them based off of running it back, like he said, which he admitted was a mistake. So I think the free agency approach has to change. They don't have to – I don't expect them to be some crazy spending team. And if you look at the list of teams from last year to this year who spent the most in free agency, those are losing teams. Those are teams that don't win. You're trying to, buy a lot of, talent, which usually with talent on the open market, you're not buying a lot of good talent. Those guys are, average players or slightly above average players. Star players don't become free agents. Common sense. So I do think that they have to go out and at least get some legit starter, capable help, guys that can push for spots, guys that can make you uncomfortable. That's a big thing. And then also, I think beyond that, bring in competition for Anthony. How real are you about winning, about trying to push him, especially after the things that happened this year? This is a guy you had to bench to get his attention and tell him, hey, this isn't how we do things. So bring in somebody to kind of let him know this isn't just your job because you roll out of bed and you're, number 4 pick. You got to earn it. And I think he definitely has to earn it going into next season.
Hey, James, Chris referenced the article you had along with Zach Kiefer regarding the Colts anonymous source. He referenced that in the press conference today, and we all read that. It was a really well-written piece by you and Zach with a lot of information in there. I'm curious, do you think this particular Colts unnamed source, is he like one of one in that locker room, or is there a prevailing thought of what was described in that story you guys had written regarding there being a lack of a plan for this team in the now and moving forward?
Yeah, for those listening, the gist of the quote was there's no vision for this team. And obviously when that quote comes out, a GM is going to take offense to that. And the way I went about reporting it, this was the only player who was sort of willing to go on the record, even though they didn't use their name. But that general feeling, I talked to at least a handful of players throughout the locker room, whether it's, players that have been there for a long time, short time, all over the roster, status high, status low. I talked to a bunch of people. There was a sense of, maybe not as demonstrative as that quote in particular, but there was a sense of what are we doing? Can we win here? Is it being taken seriously enough by everybody involved? And so I think some of that stuff, when you hear the comments from DeForest Buckner, where he's like, ego got in the way, when you hear Kenny Moore going off after the Bills game, when you hear other players, even Julian Blackman said the other day, after I talked to him for one of my stories, he was saying, hey, man, we're frustrated we don't win the AFC South every year. When you hear those things from those players, obviously when you hear the comment that I had from the unquoted player or anonymous player, then obviously I think that shows you a general theme about how this team is frustrated about just being on that hamster wheel of mediocrity. So, maybe no vision is definitely a personal shot, if you're a GM and you hear that from a player. But at the end of the day, I think Ballard, again, fell on the sword today and said it's my fault for not creating a better environment where this stuff doesn't even crop up and players don't even feel compelled to tell, somebody in the media this.
Would you believe that there may be more of a similar prevailing thought in that locker room right now?
I think so. To a certain yes. And mainly because as much as you try to push out the noise, players don't like losing. They don't like getting close and being in the same spot. So, when you ask a player, for example, Kenny Moore was asked point blank the other day, hey, what needs to change here for you all to get over the hump? He said, I don't know. I mean, when players are saying that, and, we asked Pittman the same thing after the Giants game, he's like, something's got to change here. I don't know what that something is, but something's got to change. Those things, I think, speak to a locker room that doesn't really have answers right now, and we don't have answers. You might not have the best vision going forward.
Yeah, it's James Boyd of the Athletics on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He was the Chris Ballard presser a little bit earlier today. I can't get past this. And listen, I know Steichen and Irsay both talked about how close they were, and then Chris said earlier today that they weren't close. It is still flooring to me that you're going into year number 9 and you describe yourself as not close. That's reality. Don't get me wrong. At least you're actually looking at it and you're seeing on the reflection what it actually is. It's just tough to comprehend. honestly, going into year 9 and then saying to everybody that you're not close?
It's a catch-22 for sure, because if he says they're not close, you're like, well, what have you been doing for the past 8 years? If he says, well, we are close, you're like, what do you mean you were 8-9? And so I just don't know what spot he could really put himself in to earn some grace or earn some respect. Like he said, at this point, everything he said is empty. Everything he said can be thrown back in his face. And so at this point, everyone from him to Shane Steichen to Anthony, they have to figure out what's next and how to get this team back to a competitive standpoint, and not just, like he said, being competitive enough to kind of give you some hope, but to go out there and win at a high rate, at a high level, which they just haven't done throughout these last few years. I mean, I talked to Wally Cox, and I was like, man, you're going to free agency. What's one of the things you'll consider? And he was just saying consistency, winning, trying to get into the playoffs. And you look at what's happened here and what this franchise used to be, they're far and away not the Peyton Manning or even the Andrew Luck Colts that we remember.
How does a guy not realize that you need competition? And he referenced that earlier today, and that was also flooring to me. Didn't recognize, run it back, no position battles. You didn't need the competition. And James, I've mentioned this a number of times, every single fan was screaming onto this show about it and talking about positions of need where those shortcomings weren't addressed. How do you not realize that in that particular position? I get falling on the sword and being contrite and all that, but holy hell, don't you just kind of put your hands up and go, what the hell are you doing here? Especially with the level of competition you didn't realize was necessary with this group.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more damning things that Chris Ballard had to answer for today, because this team looked maybe or gave you a mirage of being close last year. You're like, man, we got to 9 wins with our backup quarterback. We were one drive away from going to the playoffs, winning the division. We're right there. And that's what he said he kind of fell victim to, and he decided to just run it back. I looked it up. The Colts actually brought back 81.7% of their players from last year's team to the start of this year's team. That was number 1 in the league. And so when you do that, you need to be a team that's going to go out there and dominate and win and have that continuity. And so to look up at the end of the year and be like, man, I didn't have enough competition, and you got DeForest Buckner saying we had too much ego and individualism, man, these are the guys you brought back. These are the guys you paid. And when your biggest free agent signing is Roquan Davis, who was a fine backup player, I think that's an indictment of maybe not being realistic about your team and your roster. And again, I'll say I might have fallen a little bit of victim to that too when it comes to them being close last year to the playoffs. But I mean, even I was pounding hey, you might need some more cornerbacks, you might need some more safeties. And today he said they have to upgrade at both of those positions, and he could have, but he didn't. He rolled with those players, and obviously the defense struggled, and they're moving on to a new defensive coordinator.
When I think people talk about being close, this is what I think about. I think year to year, an NFL team, it is built financially. The whole Rubik's Cube of it is built to be close, to have a bounce back in 1 year. In Denver, in their financial situation, and now being on the postseason, I think that's a hell of an example of that. However, I think you have to look even deeper at who you are. And considering the Colts were basically eliminated with a month left to go in the season or some thereabout within their own division, a crappy division at best, and knowing what's taken place or lack thereof in winning in the past, that should go to explain to everybody how far away they are. You might be close to like squeaking into the postseason here or there, but legitimizing your product to where you want it to be and where your fan base expects it to be, that's where you're not close to right here.
Absolutely. I think, honestly, JMV, it comes down to, can your quarterback play at a high level? Because honestly, we could talk about them not making the playoffs, them struggling, not having competition. Can you figure out your quarterback position? Because when you think about Denver, Bo Nix, had a pretty strong rookie season to get to the playoffs. Last year, C.J. Stroud had a really strong year, and he's gone back to the playoffs again because he's played well enough. And I know he took a dip this year, but again, comparatively to Anthony Richardson, he played better. And so I think Anthony has to take a huge, massive step forward next year, which, again, he's up against it, man. He's behind the 8 ball. He has to stay healthy. He has to be accurate. He has to become a better leader. All these things have to happen basically in one season, one off season, and he has to go out there and perform. So we'll see. But, yeah, it's easy to kind of get caught up in, what you did wrong. But at the end of the day, man, it's like you got to get your quarterback together because that's the one prevailing theme throughout every year of the Ballard tenure since Andrew Luck walked away. It's, man, we haven't figured out the quarterback position, and because of that, we haven't had success from the top down. I mean, it's tough.
Do you believe in Richardson?
I'll say I'm more skeptical now than I've ever been. I was pretty high on him coming into the season. I thought that, hey, he had one injury, a freak injury last year to his shoulder, missed 13 games. He was still relatively healthy this year, only missed 4 games out of 17, got benched for another 2. That's a whole other story. But I think when you talking to Ballard today and me pressing him and asking him, why did you need to bench a 2-time team captain for not working hard enough, for not being locked in enough? And you're saying, hey, James, do you have any kids? It's kind of like he's a grown man. But, by the way, it's kind of like when you tell him to clean your room, he doesn't do it. I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't do it? He's getting paid $30 million plus to do it.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, is a bit concerning. And I get it. Anthony bounced back. They said he's been carrying himself a lot better since then. But the fact that you even had to do that to get his attention to kind of understand the magnitude of his role within the franchise, that gives me pause on top of the injuries and the inaccuracy.
I think it's all hilarious because it was also a matter of convenience because at those moments they thought that Flacco was a better choice at getting them wins. So it was really more of a matter of convenience. But, yeah, you talk about damning statements to Richardson. There was one right there. Do you have kids? Well, sometimes they don't do this. Sometimes they don't clean their room. And you had all that first season basically to sit back and watch and see how that position works from the outside and soak it all in. And so you're telling me that entire year you didn't learn a damn thing. That's incredible.
That is pretty damning. And again, I don't think I'll ever get a clear answer on this from Ballard, from Shane, from Anthony, because that to me was the most ridiculous part about all of it. Yes, he was hurt, but twice the players voted this guy captain. So either the voting is a facade, it's fake or whatever. And I get it, the quarterback's the captain. I mean, they do that in high school on up. But it's a bad look when you have to bench a guy because and again, they were saying this isn't necessarily about his play. If you say, hey, he's erratic, and that's part of it. He was not playing well. But to say that the premise of it was he wasn't preparing well enough, a lack of preparation, that to me is a ridiculous statement of things you perhaps let slide. Because I'm thinking, I'll be damned if I ask you to do something you don't do and you're my franchise quarterback. So we'll see what happens going forward.
It's a hell of an operation you got working over there. Jeez.
Never a dull moment at the 56th Street facility, my man.
All right, hey, have a fantastic weekend. Keep things warm and keep them on the road when you're out and about, James. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. Weekend starts now. I was so annoyed as the press conference was today, but now that it's over, I'm glad that it happened today and not like tomorrow.
Did that annoy you when he asked you if you had kids?
No, not at all. I'll clear that up real quick on the air. I got a few people messaging me like, man, did you get offended? Did you get mad about that? Did he take a jab at you? I don't care at all. It's fine. Like, we beat the man up for 45 minutes, took a jab back. If you can't dish it, you shouldn't, if you can't take it, you shouldn't dish it. So I'm good with that.
I think guys that, use words like he does to his advantage. I mean, he's pretty savvy in what he does. I just think he's trying to find the best way to get through an hour and get past this and move forward. So, and still have a gig, which is where he is right there. Well done, James. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And I'm moving forward with no kids, so life is great.
Yes, I bet it is. All right, James. Have a great weekend. James Boyd of The Athletic on the Indy Automotive Group hotline. Gorman on the other side. It is the return of the last word way, way too damn early. That's why I'm in studio. That's why I was in studio yesterday. Bums us all out. Gorman on the other side, Lil Wayne tickets for Gainbridge Fieldhouse in February also coming up, and your calls at 239-1070 to end the show. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Boomba. Describe the sound made when a sheep explodes.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, sometimes with your kids, and look, he's a young man, you expect them to do things and they don't do them. Like, hey, clean your room, okay? They don't do it. Well, and you're right, he was voted by his team a captain. And not doing the things consistently that needed to be done, that is correct. And it was a part of the learning, okay? It's part of the growth and learning. Do you wish they all came in there and were perfect pros from the get-go? Absolutely you do. But that's not the case, you know? We got to help them grow. And there's going to be moments of failure. You know, failure, like I have really messed up in the past using that word so hard, because really, in reality, failure can be a good thing if you grow from it, if you really learn from it, if you really learn from the experience. Struggle and failure are good. They're not bad things if you learn and grow from them. And that's what, you know, we'll continue to hope that he continues to learn from those mistakes.
I am very excited about the growth in year number 9. There, Chris Ballard a little bit earlier. Steph Curry out tonight against the Pacers. Injury management, second of a back-to-back for Golden State at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Draymond Green is out. Jonathan Kuminga, Gary Payton. I think last check, Trace Jackson-Davis from Center Grove was questionable. We'll give you a little bit of insight if we get it. Coming up here before the top of the hour, where you're going to hear, yes, I said that correctly, you're going to hear the last word, along with Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts, our good friend from the Colts Radio Network. The Gorman's going to be a part of that extravaganza. He joins us now on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hello, Gorman.
John, boy, Andrew, it looks like Wiggins isn't going to play either tonight. So, boy, that'll be a real all-star contest out there.
I don't think they're going to have Alton Lister or Tim Hardaway or Chris Mullen.
Mullen's not playing tonight?
Rick Barry's not playing either, so yeah. So here we go.
No.
Let's see. Steve Kerr, the media gets his starters tonight. Schroeder, Heald, Waters, Kyle Anderson, and it looks like Trace is going to play. So those are the guesses of the starting lineup coming up later on tonight for you.
Did not know Slow-Mo was in Golden State.
Slow-Mo is indeed in Golden State.
Had no idea. I got to get caught up on the NBA. Matter of fact, I'd love to talk all NBA this segment if you're open.
I bet you would. I am, because I'll be honest with you, Gorman. I'm worn out. I am absolutely worn out on this. It is the same damn thing over and over and over.
Well, I know, John, it's frustration. I mean, I'm going to say this about Chris Ballard. He listens, he heard, he's read, you know, all of the above. Everything that the local, people have been saying about this franchise, as far as the national media has been saying about this franchise, and making the right call for Jim Irsay and all this stuff like that. So I tell you what, man, for him to get up there today, and I am going to try and find a little bright spot in this thing for Chris Ballard. That's tough, man. That's tough. He knew about this thing. He suffered some sickness. Had to wait a couple days, came back on it, and he said, hey, I'm not good enough. We're not good enough. It's on me. 8-9 is not even close. You know what I'm saying? That's a little bit different from last year where he's saying, we're close, signing 22 guys, keeping everybody in-house and awarding the players that are there and stuff like that. And what I got from that thing today is the philosophy is going to change in the next year, and I don't know if that means big splash free agents coming in, but the defensive scheme is going to change somewhat. We've given up a lot of points. The Colts have for the last, 3-4 years under Gus Bradley, and before that, and defense has always been some bright spots in there. But, I kind of commend him a little bit for going up there and facing the heat, John, for nothing more than that, than facing the heat. You had guys that were chomping at the bit. All the local media was drooling, waiting for this guy to get up there. And they let him have it, and they asked those tough questions, and he answered it like this. And he said, hey, this is, we are who our record is, just like Parcells said. And like the toughness of the team and the stuff that went on in the locker room. He addressed everything, just went over it. And, hey, the only thing I can say is you turn the page and, try and get those one-score games in your favor next year, and we're not talking like this. So I do, John. I know it sounds crazy, but I give the guy credit for there because, he knows, hey, I bet when he went in that Jim Irsay office, a week ago with Shane Ballard or whenever their meeting was, he didn't know what to expect out of the owner out there. So I'm glad, they had a good talk, and at least he says, hey, you got another 365 days to figure this thing out. So here we go.
I honestly think that he is so comfortable to where it didn't weigh. Seriously, I think he's just comfortable. I mean, look, I know that I'm sure that's very difficult to do, and I don't mean to minimize it. I just think at his level, there is such, to him, a level of comfort right now to where there is not much more of a massive effect in trying to explain how the season went down when you know that you're going to get a 9th campaign coming up. So
right.
I think that he's incredibly entrenched and comfortable, and maybe we over-exaggerate a little bit the impact of having to do what he did in front of the local media earlier today, just because of that comfortable nature that he has, knowing he's going to get year number 9 already.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm not, but I kind of disagree because I don't think he's been in a I don't think he's been in a comfortable spot, in the last 3 years. I don't think he's been comfortable in the last 2 years, definitely, because it's a results league, everybody says, and if that's the case, why is he still here? I was reading articles about that on that, and Jim Irsay, goes by instinct sometimes, goes by gut, and goes around the people and family as well, and, trusting this guy and says, hey, we're going to give you another run on this thing. And, John, you got to throw it in. You talked about it a little bit earlier. There's 6 years of contracts out there. There's a huge year for Anthony Richardson that goes over for, we're going to find out what kind of quarterback he is for real. We're going to find out if the guy has the goods, if we can build around him. Right now, I know everybody's rolling their eyes and saying, hey, he can't even stay in the field. He's not great this, great that, but going to bring in competition, find out what it's like, see if this team can have the upside arrow. Everybody wants to win the Super Bowl right now. Everybody wants to win it every year, but when Chris Ballard comes out and says, we're not even close, we're an 8-9 team that's not even close, kind of shows you the state of the Colts right there. And it's not an overnight, it's not an overnight fix. You know what I mean? You got to get your hands, you got to hit on a quarterback, and that's the name of the game. You're not going to, I'm just saying, we're not going to bring in, I just don't think, somebody like Kirk Cousins is going to, be the elixir that comes in and takes his team over the top. I think they need to find a franchise quarterback, and if that's going to take a couple of years, so be it. And if it's not, and Anthony Richardson's the guy, by golly, all eyes are on you this year, young man, and we're going to watch and see what he does.
We can talk about the Pacers if you want.
I know, man.
Good God
it's
Almighty.
Because I know you guys are chomping at this thing. I know you want change, and everybody's talking about change, especially the local media guys. It's tough, man. It's tough. It's a tough place to be. That building is not, it's a fun place to work, John, in the NFL, but it does stink when you lose. And it's one of those things where we got to go through a winter and another spring and find out what the draft brings us and find out what kind of competition at quarterback that Chris Ballard's going to bring in with Anthony Richardson, and most definitely what he's going to do in free agency. I mean, if he's going to spend it all and he's not even going to leave any milk money in the jug or not, who knows? But he said, hey, I was wrong in the way that I did this thing last year, and we got to change things up. So that's what I'm most excited about, obviously.
Is wrong, yeah, about the lack of competition. Didn't realize you needed competition in there. Yeah, what about the Pacers, Gorman? Seriously.
Bless your heart. No, on the last word.
What about Ohio State and Texas? I mean, it's hard. I'm not working a jackhammer or anything, but I don't really. I'm at a point, Gorman, out of year 8 going into year 9. Well, I don't know what else there is to say. Seriously, I don't know what else there is to say. It is just all a numbing experience.
Are you happy if there's a complete overhaul? I mean, is that like if we're sitting here talking and in the last week, hey, Irsay flushed out the whole front office. Are you more excited now? Or, I mean, with the unknown and, you don't know what you have.
I would have more hope and belief, Gorman, in that than I would hope and belief that all of a sudden they're going to strike, up from the ground comes the bubbling crude of the Beverly Hillbillies in year number 9.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I'm not arguing with you. I understand it. It makes complete sense. I mean, every angle that I throw at you, you can come back with another angle.
Yeah, I
about,
know. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the truth of the thing. But I love it. It's the passion of the NFL. But, hey, Chris Ballard said, hey, he was asked some pretty stark questions, right, face-to-face. Are you surprised and stuff what happened? And, James Boyd from The Athletic, who didn't sugarcoat any of his questions. I give them both credit. They sat in there, they hung in there, they answered the questions, and I'm just telling you, it's one thing that, you got the owner that's saying, basically all we heard from Chris Ballard today from his, discussion with Jim Irsay was 2 words, and that was fix it. And I can just imagine how Mr. Irsay said that. I don't think he did it in a nice manner, or at least a quiet manner like that, but. He's going to give him the one more run, and obviously with Shane Steichen, who Chris Ballard hired, he's attached to the hip there, and obviously the 4th overall pick attached to Anthony Richardson as well. So let's roll this thing out. Let's see what kind of competition we got, John. And I'm looking for the Pacers to cover that 10.5-point spread tonight.
Yeah, the Sopranos started on this date 26 years ago today. How about that?
Yeah, one of the best, right? All time, one of the best.
On this date in 1988 was also Walter Payton, the late great Walter Payton's final.
Sweetness, right?
Final game. Yeah, I think was it this date in January 1988? I think.
Yeah. Oh man,
my favorite player of all time, right there.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was a Bears fan back in the day. Until I became this curmudgeon-y piece of junk that I am right now. Yeah.
That's what you guys did. I know this is a silly question, but there's no football team here.
Yeah.
Back from, we're going back, 35 years or whatever. Right. It's 40 years. But
love the Bears.
Like who is it? Is this a Bears city through and through?
Yeah, well, it was a Bears and then some like the Bengals. And honestly, during that era, it was probably more Cowboy fans and Steeler fans than there were anything else.
I got you. No, I was kind of talking regionally. I figured Cincinnati would be there, obviously, but Chicago, that would have been the big one. But
yeah, you had the Cowboys and the Steelers probably right there with the Bears as far as that is concerned. You and Matt got something for us coming up here at the top of the hour.
Yeah, we do. We got the last word. We're going to go over a few of the things. We're going to break that stuff down like everybody is over the course of the next few weeks about the Ballard press conference that lasted an hour. We're going to go over some hot topics that were discussed there. Love doing that with Matt Taylor. Matt's not a quiet guy. We hear him calling the games and stuff, but I really like his insight. I like what I like the inside angle that he gives us with this football team and the way that he studies and breaks down.
He's a square fella is what he is.
Oh,
that's a good dude right there.
No, that's a great dude. And I'm just saying the thorough work that he does on this thing. And, Matt's one of those old school guys that says the facts are the facts. The facts are the truth, and it's like, hey, they're not there. So we've had some hot discussions in the last couple of days about the franchise, where it's going and stuff like that. We've had some great conversations. We're going to bring that to the last word tonight. Plus Casey Ballier, your guy showcasing.
Yes.
We got something up for him too. But yeah, it's all football today. We're going to be playing a lot of grab ass throughout the rest of the Fridays, but it's a lot of straight talk football today, John. Trying to make some sense and give some news to the Colts fans out there after the Chris Ballard press conference.
Yeah. Keep them here too as long as you can. Right there. Grab ass is being played later on. That's good right there.
No. I said it wasn't tonight. It usually is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but tonight's all football. It's all. I'm Pepper and Taylor, and Taylor's giving me some good insights on some things. Plus we got some good stuff coming. I got some good guests lined up over the course of the next couple of months.
Love that.
Sorry, there is going to be some musical guests on the last word. I'm just telling you right now, John. You want to hear my first one? You want to hear my first one?
Yes.
It's a story. You can ask Taylor the other day. So I know Smokey, and Smokey is Smokey's Joe Walsh's guy, right?
Okay.
And okay, so Joe Walsh from the Eagle, Joe Walsh, the Joe Walsh. So Joe Walsh, I've had a chance to meet a couple times through the years, and he's a friend of Jim Irsay's and such, and been to an Eagles show and had him, after meet and greet beforehand and all that stuff. And then I was lucky enough to go one time. He went over to Mr. Irsay's house, and he went into the guitar vault. He's got a couple of them, but he's got a good size one at the house. And I was watching Joe Walsh, pick up all these guitars and these, pre-World War II Martins and all these original Gibsons, 59s and everything. And watching the guy that made his living playing that instrument and holding up. I mean, it was incredible. It was incredible to see him pick these instruments up. So got to know him a little bit there.
Good.
And I thought, you know what, they're going to be opening up at the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You know, why don't I call a favor? And so I call this guy up, Smokey. I go, hey, Smoke, you know I got a football show in here, but just want to talk about, you know, upcoming with Joe, a little bit of the playoffs, see who he likes, because Joe Walsh is a football fan, and also about the Sphere. He said, hey, sounds good. Let me throw let me throw him the request, and we'll let you know.
Awesome.
Well, not an hour later, I simply got back. Joe is declining all interviews at this time.
Yeah. There we go. Hey, my brother, I gotta run here to make sure you guys are on time here at the top of the hour. But we need more of that further down the road because we're kind of worn out on this one. So yes,
we'll get it, John.
You
all
got
right,
it.
all right.
Gorman,
we'll
thank you.
See you soon, man.
Last word coming up at the top of the hour. Gorman, Matt Taylor, Casey Valier, right here on the Fan. Don't go anywhere. Back with the next Little Wayne tickets, number 9 at 239-1070 right now. Hey, John here for Johnny Chris Love Heating and Air Conditioning today. If you need a little helper, they're there to help you out. Give them a call, 317-353-2141. Warm and comfortable. It's going to really get cold next week. And make sure your system's doing the right thing. Your furnace, get it a checkup today. If you need a repair, mention my name, John and Chris Love at Love Heating and Air. Give you $95 off any repair. That's $95 off by mentioning my name, any repair with Love Heating and Air. 317-353-2141. The best in the biz online, love-hvac.com today.
The Ride with JMV.
Look up idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
Picture me?
No. The definition of the word idiot, which you f***ing are.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
A wild card begins tomorrow at 4:30. Chargers and Texans in Houston. 8 o'clock tomorrow night, Steelers and Ravens at Baltimore. Sunday, Broncos, Bills, Packers, Eagles, Commanders, Buccaneers. Monday, again, that game's been moved to Glendale, Arizona, the Vikings and the Rams. This weekend, tonight, Texas, Ohio State for the right to take on Notre Dame for a college football playoff national title. Congratulations to all you Fighting Irish fans last night. That was a fun game to watch, too. And the Irish await the winner of the Longhorns and the Buckeyes. That game coming at you later on tonight. Pacers, Warriors at Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight. That follows Pacer pregame, the last word, coming up at the top of the hour. 239-1070 is that number. Ike is up next on line 3. Hello, Ike. How are you?
Okay, I just want to let everybody know the reason why Hearsay loves Ballard. Because Ballard does not go out and spend Hearsay's money on every shiny new object. And as far as the Colts are concerned, the problem isn't the offense. The problem was the defense. And now that Gus Bradley's gone, and we can come out next year, if we can just get a coordinator that's going to play chicken hawk football instead of chicken little football, we'll be just fine. And case in point, second to the last play Sunday, when he finally sent Zaire Franklin up the middle, he sacked that quarterback for a 20-yard loss. Now, if we'd have played like all year, we would have won a whole lot more games. So our defense is our problem. If we get a good coordinator, I think we'll be all right next year.
Thank you for the call, Ike. The defense is certainly a problem. They have a lot of problems. I could name them all off here, but I clearly don't have enough time. Bill, Fulton, you guys, sorry about that. Call me again on Monday. We'll get everybody in that was left on hold in quick coming up on Monday. A busy sports weekend, and we'll have it all for you. I want to see everybody in Fishers tomorrow. The Indy Ignite Professional Volleyball League and their first game against Orlando. I will see you up there tomorrow afternoon for the party. JMV Takeover tomorrow night's going to be delayed by about an hour, but I will be there. I promise you that on B105.7. James, great job out of you. Thank you to our guest list. The Pacers follow against the Warriors, the last word. Matt, Gorman, Case up next. You guys have a safe and a fantastic weekend with 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.